Before I make my points on this video, obviously you've seen the title, and I just want to say Dana White is easily one of the most influential people that's ever existed in MMA history. If it wasn't for him, um, MMA would just not be popular in the US or even globally in the UK, in other such countries like Australia, all of these countries where he's grown to. China, Mexico. Obviously, they've got this new Mexico card that's going to happen with the Sphere. I mean, MMA has become globalized because of Dana White's influence. If it wasn't for Dana White buying a company with the Fertitta brothers for 2 million and then putting another 41 million into it and changing it and become making it what it became, MMA and the UFC in as a whole would not be as successful as it's become. I mean, that's undoubtable. He is one of the most influential figures in MMA and the UFC. But just to make it clear, the point I'm trying to make with this video is that I feel like Dana White is the fall guy of the UFC. And when I say the fall guy, I don't mean that in any disrespectful way. What I mean is he's not the one that's making the real decisions behind the scenes. He's the one who was put in place to take the criticism and to take the the flack that comes with running an organization like the UFC. Now, the real people that are behind the scenes, let's say for when he first purchased the company, I think it was with the Fertitta brothers. The Fertitta brothers had, I believe, they had a 45% stake in the company. So there was two brothers, Lorenzo Fertitta and his brother as well, and they both had 45% stake in the company. The other 10% was given to Dana White, and Dana White eventually sold 1% off to, I think it's Abu Dhabi or the UAE. So one of the Fertitta brothers had 45%, the other one had 45%. So collectively, together, they had 90% of the company. 10% was given to Dana White, and then obviously 1% was given away to Dubai and UAE, and that's how they managed to get the Fight Island during COVID. So the fact remains, in my opinion, like if you even just looking at it from a equity split point of view, when they purchased the company, obviously I'm not saying it was wrong for them to get 45% of the company. They were the ones that were putting the money up. But in terms of who was actually pushing the UFC at the start of the organization, it was undoubtedly Dana White. Dana White, and even now to some extent, he is the figurehead and the face of the organization. But the fact remains, the people that are really making the decisions that really irritate the fans and aggravate aggravate the people within the organization, like the fighters, it's not Dana White. Dana White's the one that takes the flack. Dana White is the one that takes the criticism, but he's not the one that's actually making a decision. So when the pay per view prices go up, and obviously for some reason everyone just throws stones at Dana White, and I'm not saying he's without fault, and I'm not saying he doesn't have any power within the organization. He does have power within the organization. I remember when he I think Joe Rogan was on the verge of getting cancelled, and he said if Joe Rogan is kicked out of the organization, I'm going to leave as well. And they couldn't get rid of Joe Rogan because of Dana White. But in terms of the people that are making the real decisions, the people that are deciding, when the UFC got bought by Endeavor, I think it's like a deal that was 4 billion. The people that the people that decided for that to happen, it wasn't Dana White. Dana White is not making the deals in the back room. For example, when the ESPN deal got signed, Dana White had some say in the deal. I'm sure he was in the meetings and such, but he wasn't the one that was making the real decisions behind the scene. He wasn't one that decided, let's do this deal with ESPN. He is a figurehead to some extent. He's the person that's on the front and center. He's the one that takes the criticism. He's the one that answers the questions. He's the ones that promote the events. The people behind the scene, they're the people that are really making the decisions within the UFC. So they're the ones deciding what fighter pay is going to be like, the standard contract for fighter pay. They're the ones that decided when the Reebok sponsorship deal happened. A lot of times Dana White was the one getting the criticism for it, and that's the reason why he takes the criticism. He never deflects blame. He never says, "Oh, the reason why this is happening is because of the people behind me, above me. They're the ones making the decisions that's making this happen." He takes the blame because he's getting paid handsomely for it. And when the UFC got sold for 4 billion, I think he walked away with 360 million. And on top of that, because he's such an influential figure within the UFC, when it eventually got sold to Endeavor and became TKO, he's been put on for the contract. So what that essentially means is he gets paid £20 million a year and plus bonuses on top of that to stay on But he again with the TKO, the people that are in charge of the UFC right now is this guy called Aru. I think it's something Emmanuel, Ari Emmanuel. He's the person that's actually the CEO of the company now. He's the one that's really in charge. So to some extent, um, he Dana White does have some power within the organization, but he's really not the person that should be getting the blame for most of the decisions that's getting made in the UFC that we're not happy about. So, for example, the fact that pay-per-view prices have gone up, the prices of the seats and such has gone up. The fact that fighters don't get paid what they're worth. Like, don't get it twisted. Dana White does have some say in the matter, but in terms of the real decisions that get made, he's not in charge of it. So the people that we should be throwing our stones at is not Dana White. The people we should be throwing our stones at is Ari Emanuel. And in the past, we should have been throwing our stones at the Lorenzo Fertitta brothers and stuff. But they're never front and center. They're the people behind the scenes that literally they're like the puppet masters. They're the people that pull the strings behind the scenes that makes everything happen. But there's always someone that's front and center that needs to be the figurehead that pushes everything, and that's Dana White. It's like if you look at like for example America, the president is seen as the main figurehead within the organization that's making everything happen. Donald Trump, for example, he's a really good friend of Dana White. He's seen as the person that's obviously he's not president right now, it's Joe Biden, but you get my point. He's seen as the person that's making all the decision, but he's just the manager. He's not the CEO of America. Like the CEO of he's like a manager of a McDonald's, but he's not the CEO. He's not the one that's making the real decision, that's making stuff happen. So truth be told, the people that should be getting the criticism should not be Dana White to some extent. The person that should be getting the criticism is the people above him. And obviously Dana White will take the criticism. The reason why he takes it is because he knows that to some extent the reason why he's getting paid this much money is to take the criticism, right? So that's just the way the world works to some extent. The real people that are behind the scenes that are making stuff happen, the average guy on the street doesn't know them. If you go out to the average UFC fan, don't get it twisted. There's hardcore fans that know about like the Lorenzo Fertitta brothers and such. But you talk to the actual casual fans, they think Dana White's the one that's the CEO of the company, and he's the one that deserves all the criticism. And to some extent, he does deserve it because he's the one that perpetuates all of the BS that we see within the UFC. But in reality, he's not the one that's actually in charge. He's just the one that's the figurehead, the front of the company. And don't get it twisted, he deserves some criticism for some of the decisions and some of the stuff that goes down. Undoubtedly, he does. But the real criticism lays to the people that actually are on the back doors making the meetings, the people that really decide what happens. And to some extent, the world is run the same way. I mean, let's just be honest about it. We've got all these politicians, you got all these people. Like a politician, for example, let's say his salary is, I don't know, he makes let's be ultra optimistic. Let's say his salary on paper is 100K a year, but with the backdoor deals that he makes with companies and the lobbying and such, let's say he walks away with, I don't know, 50, 60 million pounds a year. That's off the books that we don't know about. You honestly telling me that there's billionaires within a country that's going to take orders from him when they make as much money as they do? Like, come on. Like, money is power, and the fact that there's people that exist in this world that have so much money, power, and influence, they're not going to take decisions from a politician. So you're telling me that Dana White is the face of the company. He's not the face of the company. The people that own the equity within the business, they're the ones that make the real decisions. So that's the truth of the matter. That's the way the world works, right? There's always some guy that everybody wants us to throw our stones at, and to some extent, they deserve the criticisms. The Dana Whites of the world, the Donald Trumps of the world, but the people behind the scene that are the ones that's really running stuff, you don't know them. Nobody knows who they are. We know some of them, so we know, for example, that with the UFC, we know about Ari Emanuel, we know about the Fertitta brothers, we know about these people. But I'm just talking generally, in general terms, the people making the real decisions in the world, you never see them. You never ever see them. They're the people behind the scenes that we don't know about, and they're the ones that's making things happen. It's like Star Wars. If you watch Star Wars, you got Darth Vader, who's the face of the Empire, but the person that's really behind the scenes, that's above him, is Palpatine. Palpatine is the one that runs things. So the people behind the scenes are the people that deserve the stones, the criticism. But unfortunately, because we never see them, they never get it. Tell me what you think below. Do you agree with what I'm saying, or do you not agree with it? Tell me what you think below, and like and subscribe to the channel. I've got a lot more content coming your way. Peace.